We'll start in child's pose. Knees spread wider than the hips, hips at the heels, slowly crawling the hands out as you fold forward at the waist. Arms elongated out in front of you, fingers spread nice and wide. The forehead's resting on the mat. Slowing down the breath. Today's yin practice is all about opening up the hips. Opening up the hips through abduction, adduction, internal rotation, external rotation, and we're going to give the hips stretches from the inside out. And we'll be doing this by holding each pose anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes. There are so many benefits of yin yoga. Benefits on a physical, mental, and emotional level. So right now, nice and easily, before we get started, go ahead and find that wave of breath, coming in and out through the nose, focusing on inhaling a little bit deeper and pressing the exhales out a little bit longer, smoothing out the breath to a calm, fluid rhythm. Using this breath as an anchor that holds you within the present moment throughout the duration of class. And before we start to move, gently rock your head side to side, giving yourself a nice forehead massage. Feeling into that third eye space and activating that intuitive part of the brain. With that breath and that flow, go ahead and ease your way all the way up to tabletop position. Tuck the toes under, lift the hips, and press back, downward facing dog. For this first down dog of the practice, go ahead and pedal out the feet, shifting the weight from side to side, taking your dog on a little walk. And nice and easily, go ahead and lift the right leg off of the mat on an inhale. And on an exhale, bringing the foot forward in between the hands for a deep runner's lunge. Relax the left knee onto the floor, untuck the left toes. Bring the right hand to the inside of that right foot as you heel toe the right foot over to the right a couple of inches. Feel free to stay here or go ahead and bend through the elbows, lowering down onto the forearms. Option to put a block underneath the forearms or underneath the hands. And you may have one forearm down, you may be up on your hands. Just know that there's no one right way to do the pose. There are 3 principles we follow during yin classes. And that first principle is to find your edge, going to wherever feels right for you and your body. Putting that positive stress onto the body, and knowing the difference between good and bad pain. And once you've found your edge, just dance with it, tiptoe along it. And the second principle is to find stillness, relaxing into it and just breathing into the stretch. It's not about how deep we are into the posture, but rather how much we can release and let go. And the third principle is to hold it, allowing the body to open up, respond, and repair. So we'll be holding today's poses anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes. There's no need to worry about the time. I'll be keeping track of the clock. Just a couple more breaths here. From here, go ahead and come all the way back up onto the hands. Bring the right hand to the outside of that right foot and heel toe the foot all the way over to the left side of the mat. Let your right knee open up towards the right so the shin is parallel with the front of the mat. coming into pigeon pose. The left leg is long and straight out behind you, maybe sliding the left knee back a little further. Turn the outer left hip down so the hips are square, 2 hips in one line, and slowly start to crawl forward. You can use the forearms for support here, or maybe crawling the hands all the way out so the forehead rests gently on the floor. Option to put a block under the front hip, the left thigh, or underneath the forehead for support. Allowing the weight of the skull to be supported here. Relaxing and breathing into it. Now we know that in modern day living, the way that we work and the way that we live our lives is this constant go, 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 go. It's a very yang-centered world that we live in. It's very active and at times can be very superficial. And yin yoga is the perfect offset for this, the perfect way to balance things out. Yin yoga teaches us the wisdom of slowing down. It gives us the opportunity to look within and really heal the body from the inside out. Slowing down the breath here. Long, deep, slow inhales. And long, deep, slow exhales. Just a couple more breaths here. And very slowly, start to crawl your hands back up, taking your time. And from here, go ahead and lean over onto the right sit bone. Swing your left leg out in front of you. Maybe just shaking out the body here, moving that chi around. Pick up the right leg and place it over the left, so the 2 knees are stacked right on top of one another. The right heel is near the left sit bone for half shoelace pose. On an inhale, sit up straight, nice flat back. And on the exhale, slowly crawl the hands forward to your own degree. If you're like me, you'll feel the tremendous stretch down the entire backside of the leg. Maybe even feeling the stretch throughout that right hip joint. And just breathing into it. Finding your edge. Finding the stillness. And holding here. Alright, guys, go ahead and crawl those hands back up to the hips. Then the left knee in, right ankle to left knee to left ankle. Shins parallel to the front of the mat for double pigeon pose. Maybe placing a block or a thickly folded blanket under the top knee for support here. And if this hip opener is too intense, maybe coming into an easy seated position. But wherever you are, slowly walking the hands forward, hinging at the hips. When we hold these stretches for 90 seconds or longer, we start working deep into the connective tissue, releasing fascia within the body. And when we work into these deep connective tissues, our bodies start to release fibroblasts. And these fibroblasts create something called hyaluronic acid, which is often referred to as nature's moisturizer, because when it's released, it starts to hydrate and moisturize the joints, which in turn increases circulation, allowing old cells to get washed away so that new cells can be fed and created. This process has been proven to slow down and in many cases potentially even reversing the aging process within the body. Which is why we often say that Yin Yoga is the fountain of youth. Just a couple more breaths here. And slowly coming out of it, walk the hands back into the body. Lean back onto the lower back and slowly windshield wiper the legs from side to side. Knowing that it's perfectly normal to feel 90 years old when you come out of some of these postures. Those connective tissues take at least 90 seconds to open up, and then they take a while to close up. So that's what you're feeling. Now go ahead and bring the soles of the feet together, coming into a butterfly stretch. On an inhale, sit up straight, and on an exhale, slowly start to lean forward. Releasing any thoughts that may arise, and just focusing on the breath. In and out of the nostrils, in and out of the nose. Go ahead and roll on up. Bring the knees in towards one another. Cross the feet. Come forward, making your way through tabletop. Hips to the heels, arms slide forward. Transitional child's pose. Maybe shifting around a bit, moving that energy, moving that chi throughout the body. Slowly make your way back up to a tabletop position. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. And again, feel free to pedal out the feet here. Shifting the weight from side to side, taking your dog on a little walk. Nice and easy. On an inhale, left leg lifts off the mat. And on an exhale, bringing that foot forward in between the hands for a deep runner's lunge. Relax the right knee onto the floor, untuck the right toes. Bring the left hand to the inside of that left foot. Heel toe that front left foot over to the left a couple of inches, creating space. Staying here or bending through the elbows, lowering down onto the forearms. Maybe placing a block underneath the forearms or underneath the hands. Knowing that wherever you are is exactly where you're supposed to be. Finding your edge, finding that deep stretch, and then simply holding and relaxing into it. Breathing into that hip and becoming aware of the rest of the body. How much of the body can you relax here? How much can you release? How much can you let go? Trying to keep the mind on the breath, letting go of any thoughts that may occur, letting go of everything that happened before class, and everything you have going on afterwards. Using that breath as your anchor. Just a few more breaths here. And from here, go ahead and come all the way back up. Bring the left hand to the outside of that left foot and heel toe the left foot all the way over to the right side of the mat, allowing that left knee to open up towards the left. The shin is parallel to the front of the mat, finding pigeon pose on the other side. The right leg is long and straight out behind you. Maybe experimenting here by sliding that right knee back a little further. You can slowly start to crawl forward. Option to put a block under that front hip, maybe under the right thigh, or underneath the forehead for support. Finding your variation of the pose and allowing the body and the mind to melt into it. Being aware of how you're feeling emotionally here, and knowing that it's perfectly normal to feel some negative emotions while holding these deep hip stretches. We hold a lot of emotions in our hips. And when we sit in these deep stretches for an extended period of time, we start to work into the meridians of the gallbladder and the liver, which is where we hold feelings like anger, annoyance, and frustration, which is why you might be feeling these things throughout practice. And our society has normalized trying to avoid and block out these negative emotions, but when we try to block them out, close them off, what we're doing is actually just locking them within ourselves. So when we hold these stretches for an extended amount of time, it allows us to sit with the emotions for a little bit. We're forced to deal with them, which in turn is what allows our bodies to release them, creating rooms for feelings like kindness and compassion, which is why Yin Yoga is so therapeutic, so healing, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. All right, just a few more breaths here. Very slowly, taking your time, crawl the hands back up into the body. We'll slowly lean over onto that left sit bone, maybe shifting around a bit here, before swinging your right leg out in front of you. Pick up the left leg and place it over the right. Two knees are stacked right on top of one another. The left heel is near that right sit bone. Half shoelace pose. On an inhale, sit up straight, nice flat back. And on the exhale, slowly crawl the hands forward to your own degree. There's a story about a poor farmer with a son, and their only possession was a single horse. One day his son forgot to lock the stable, and their one horse escaped. The farmer's neighbor came by to say that he was sorry about them losing their one and only horse, their one and only possession. The farmer replied, "Who knows what's good or bad?" A week later, their horse came galloping back and brought 10 other horses with them. The neighbor came by and said, "Congratulations on your new horses, for you are now a rich man." The farmer replied, "Who knows what's good or bad?" A couple of weeks later, the farmer's son was out riding one of the new horses and fell off and broke his leg. The neighbor came by again and said, "I'm sorry to hear about your son. That's awful." The wise farmer replied, "Who knows what's good or bad?" A month later, an army of soldiers came by the farmer's house, looking to recruit young men to help expand the empire. Because the farmer's son had broken his leg, his life was spared from fighting in a deadly war. So many times, we label our feelings and experiences as good or bad. But it's important to remember that through the dark times is where we will initiate the most growth. Challenges initiate transformation. So throughout life, when you find yourself deeming something as good or bad, just remember what the wise farmer said. Who knows what's good or bad? Everything always ends up working out. and we always end up exactly where we're supposed to be. Go ahead and crawl those hands back up to the hips. Bend the right knee in, left ankle to right knee, left knee to right ankle. The shins are parallel to the front of the mat, coming into double pigeon. Maybe placing a block or a thickly folded blanket under the top knee for support here. Finding your variation of the pose. And wherever you are, slowly walking the hands forward, hinging at the hips. Feeling and connecting back to the breath. Yin yoga isn't really about effort. It's more about just creating the time, giving this present to yourself, giving yourself permission to relax and do something good for your body and for your mind. And it's not about how far or how deep we can get into the poses either, but rather how much can we let go. If you're like me, you may tend to tense through the shoulders or throughout the neck. Just become aware of any tension that you may be holding and simply let it go. All right, guys, last few breaths here. Go ahead and walk the hands back into the body. Lean back onto the lower back and slowly windshield wiper the legs from side to side. Releasing all that tension in those hips and taking the time to move around here. Moving around that energy. Turn 90 degrees, facing the long side of your mat. Legs spread out to either side for a wide-legged straddle pose. Maybe placing a block or folded blanket underneath the sit bones for support here. On an inhale, sitting up nice and tall, and slowly crawling your hands forward on the exhale to your own degree. As adults, we're really good at holding on and gripping to things. We're really good at attachment. And it's a lot easier to attach ourselves to something or to someone, a feeling in the body, or energetically, than it is to release. Releasing is tough. It can be scary. It's really hard to let go at times. So challenge yourself here to go up to that edge and to find that release. Letting go, turning inside. The longer we hold these stretches, the more fascia begins to open up, which is what we want, and what today's practice is really all about. Slowly start to lift the chest. Bring the hands to the outer edges of the knees and use the hands to gently close the knees together. Turn to face the front of the mat, shaking out the legs here, moving that chi around. It might feel nice to lean back onto the hands and windshield wiper out the legs, just allowing that connective tissue to close back up after it opened. Go ahead and straighten out the legs in front of you. On an inhale, sit up nice and straight for length, and on an exhale, bow forward. Slowing down the breath here, taking deep, slow inhales, and long, slow exhales. Finding your edge, holding, and allowing time to do its thing. The fascia underneath the skin, the whole web of connective tissues that runs throughout the entire body, is starting to open up. And as it opens, it spreads. And there are many health benefits to this. One of those benefits is that stress hormones stop producing as much. So yin yoga helps to decrease your stress levels. It also improves the quality of your sleep, gives you a calm energy for the rest of the day. A lot of people like to practice yin at night, right before they go to bed, but it's also a nice practice even for the morning. Helps you to move throughout your day with more stamina, with more agility, building energy. We'll take one more inhale here and slowly release, crawling the hands back up, coming down onto your back. We'll hug the knees into the chest and then extend the arms out to the side like a T. Slowly drop the legs over to the right, turning the gaze out over the left shoulder for a reclined twist. Maybe let the eyes close here if it feels nice. And when you're ready, coming back through center, before dropping the legs over to the left. Noticing how the hips feel. Noticing the effects of your practice today. Then we'll come back through center. Hug the knees back into the chest, tucking the forehead to the knees like a little ball. Giving yourself a nice big hug. And release. Final resting pose, Shavasana. Legs extend out in front of you. Arms rest gently, palms face up next to the body. Closing down the eyes as you feel your body melt into the ground below you. being aware of every in-breath and of every out-breath. Thinking about how you feel now compared to how you felt at the beginning of practice. Using this time to maximize on the relaxation. Allowing your body and your mind to absorb up and integrate all the benefits of today's practice. We'll stay here for the next few moments. Feel free to stay here for as long as you'd like, for as long as would serve you best today. But if you're ready and willing, slowly bringing some awareness back into the body. Maybe curling through the fingers or rolling it through the toes. The love and light in me recognizes that same love and light in each of you. I hope you had a beautiful practice. Together we say, Namaste.